Hello, welcome to this last session of the short course showing you some different techniques to decorate and embellish fabric. Today we're going to be looking at combining the techniques from previous weeks. I'm just going to show you a couple of samples I've done using different combinations of the techniques we've looked at in previous weeks: hand painting, block printing, applique and stitch. This one has got a hand painted background. I'm going to show you what it looked like before. So this is what the hand painted background looked like before. You can just sort of see that. So I painted it to look a bit like sky and sort of a grassy meadow. And then what I've done, I've got a block printed on these daisies. I've appliqued on some little grassy stems using some craft felt. I've done some free machining to sort of emphasize the grassy stems, and I've done a bit of hand stitching for the stems of the daisies, and I've also put these other little daisies on by hand, as you can see. That's one combination. I'm going to show you another one. Another thing you can do is use your block printing and layer it to create a background. So this one's obviously a few different leaf block prints that I've got, which I have combined, and I'm just going to show you what that looked like before. So this is the background created layering the block prints. So I've used a combination of yellow, greens, turquoise and purple, and then I've appliqued over the top. So obviously just appliqued on, bit of machining, and I've used some green ribbon for its little stems. Okay. Well, one thing I will say, whenever before I do any stitching, you want to put some little backing on the fabric. So I tend to use the just the iron-on interfacing. It's just very convenient and easy to use. It gives it a bit more body. It's much easier to stitch onto then. So that's a couple of different combinations, and I thought now I might just show you creating a hand-painted background. So I've got my fabric taped down to a board. This is just a piece of hardboard. Very thick cardboard or mount board would be fine, MDF, anything like that. You want something solid to tape your fabric down with masking tape. I've previously painted this a pale yellow. I'm using acrylic paints, and I'm always mixing it up with the fabric medium, 50-50 fabric medium with the paint, okay, before you actually apply any. I've dried this off with a hairdryer. I've then applied some masking tape here to these areas so that I'm going to have different things going on in the different sections. And what I'm going to do before I carry on and actually demonstrate painting this, I'm actually going to show you my designs of how I've got to create these different sections. Okay, so looking at the samples I've created previously, I knew I wanted to have a hand-painted flower in one of the sections, and I sort of really like this image, actually very soft and very painterly and obviously hand painted, which is, if you're going to hand paint, you might as well make it look nice and painterly. I really like that idea, so I've sort of done a little sheet here, trying a few different shapes of flowers out that I thought would be quite nice. I actually really like these two. So what I'm going to do a hand-painted flower in one section, and I'm actually going to do some applique in the centre. And I'm just going to then show you how I sort of came up with the idea. So then I've decided, rather than do one great big flower on the whole piece, I thought it'd be nice to divide it up into sections, and I could try a few different things out in the different sections. I didn't want it to be too neat. I could have done it in quarters or thirds, but I quite like the sort of breaking it up slightly, so you've got different size sections. This one here, I actually really liked my little sample that I showed you earlier, this little one here. I really like that with the sort of block printing background and the applique flowers on there, so I thought I'd do something similar in this one. And here I thought I may do some hand painting, and I was sort of inspired by this little piece I did earlier. I thought maybe something like that. So I was just trying out a few different ideas. And then actually I found this image, this one here, with this really bold shape sort of quite a sort of jungly looking leaf. I really quite like that, so I thought it might actually be nicer to have something like that going on in these sections. So then I played around a little bit more. I'm just going to show you, and thinking about colours now and actually how to actually do this. I've actually made a little block print here and tried out some different colour variations of backgrounds and colours, and also thinking about the flower here, what sort of colours I might want to go with the background and the flower. This was trying out a background for this section here, where I'm going to do some applique. And then I was just thinking about the overall colour scheme, really, of what I might want to do. So that's how I've come to have a yellow piece of fabric to start with. I painted it all yellow because I really wanted to do sort of bright, zingy colours, nice and bold, really quite in your face. So I was going to do initial wash of yellow. I'm then going to put a little bit more colour in these sections, okay, just so they're all a little bit different before I go ahead and do some more work on those. So this is going to be a hand painting section here, and this is going to be hand painted and block printed in this corner. And I'm just going to now show you doing some hand painting on the background before I do anything else. Okay, so now I have got some paints ready. I've mixed up a green with a lemon yellow and a cyan blue mixed up, and I've also got some white here, and I've just got my fabric medium there ready to mix in. And I'm actually going to be using, because I've got quite a big piece here, I'm actually going to just use an ordinary household painting brush, which I find works much better if you've got quite a large surface. So this section here right down the bottom where I'm going to do some block printing, I'd quite like to make it a little bit lighter, I think. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mix my white in here. I'm just going to lighten it up by just going over with a little bit of white actually, and just so it's a pale, very pale lemon rather than quite a bright yellow, just so that I thought the block printing would then show up better. Now one other thing I'm just going to show you, if you want to, you can wet your fabric slightly. If you're struggling to get it to go on smoothly, you'll find if you wet it slightly, it will go on more smoothly. Okay, that's better. That's toned it down a little bit. Now this top section here, what I really like, I'm just going to show you the picture it inspired me. I quite like this sort of painterly background. I'm not going to go quite so wild with it, but I'm going to add some touches of green in here, so it's not just a plain colour. So what I'm going to do is mix it up again. Make sure I thoroughly mix in my fabric printing medium, and I'm going to put a little bit of water in with the paint as well, so make it a bit runnier, because I want this to be almost like wet painting actually, rather than it being too dominant. So I'm putting a bit of water in this to make it a bit runnier. Okay, and then I'm just going to put it on and daub it on. So I'm going to play around with this and actually just blend this in, so I'm getting little bits of colour, so it's not all uniform. And I'm actually just going to blend this in with my fingers. You can use a tissue or a dry brush actually if you want to, a clean dry brush. I'm just messy. So I've got a little bit of some other colour going on in there. I'll just get a tissue and actually just a bit more than I wanted just here. Taking some of that off. There. That's just lifted it a little bit. I'll just put slightly darker green here. I'll just put a few touches of that in. There. And I'm just going to get a tissue and I'm just going to smudge it around a bit. Yeah, it's quite nice. I quite like that spongy look. What I might actually do is I'm going to get a bit more paint on my tissue. I'm actually just going to come in. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of a couple of darker little bits in, not too much, but just a suggestion of little bit more colour in there, a couple of places. I think that's all I need. I don't need any more than that. Okay, so I've finished painting that section, this one, just of the background colour. I've just, as you saw, just added a bit, some yellows and greens in there to sort of, just so it's not quite exactly the same as the other sections. Now, on this section here, I've made a little template, the basic sort of leaf shape that I've got here. And I'm going to be using cadmium orange to paint it. That's my sort of samples. I quite like this one where I've actually got some sort of yellows and oranges, so it's a mixture of colours, and then I've block printed over the top with a sort of deep turquoise. I tried purple and I've tried black, but I quite like the turquoise. This is the block print I've made. So I've made the template, so it's plenty big enough for my block print to go over the top. I think I may even paint over that slightly, so it's very slightly bigger. So I'm going to hand paint this now. And then I need to dry that so I can do the block print, and then I can do a hand painted flower in this section here. That's the next. So I'm just gonna be mixing this up with some nice cadmium orange, and I'm going to paint this area here. I'll just start painting it, and then I'll carry on and come back to you, because you don't need to watch me do all of this. So you can just see I'm just going around, lightly sketched around the template with some pencil, and I'm just going to come in and actually start applying the paint. All right, and I'll get that done and I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've completed painting this. As you can see, I've actually done some sort of golden orange and some darker orange, so it sort of looks a bit more painterly, and I'm going to in a little while put a block print on there. But first I thought I'd actually just get a flower painted in this section here. Now I've actually done a template and sketched around it. It's easier doing it something like that because you can then sort of get it central. I have discovered actually, if you've got acrylic paint on your fabric, if you lightly pencil something on and it goes wrong, you can actually rub it out. So if you do it very lightly, so that's fine. But remember also to allow for a seam allowance. So if I put that dead centre and then I put my seam on, obviously that's going to be sort of off. So I'll actually put it slightly in and slightly down, a little bit further than I think so. Right, I'm going to actually get this painted now. So I'm going to paint this in magenta and purple. So I'll make a start and then I'll come back to you again. Now I'm painting this, so I'm not trying to get the petals all exactly the same. I quite like to make them sort of slightly a bit wiggly, which is, you know, fine. So I'm not going to be too worried about that. So I'm going to come round and actually just carry on painting this. Okay, so I've painted all the petals on the flower magenta, and now I'm just going to come in and I'm going to put a little bit of purple, sort of violety purple. I've got some purple here. I'm going to mix actually a little bit of the magenta with that purple just to brighten it up a little bit. A bit more of a pinky violet. There we go. Just get a little bit of this, and I'm then going to just blend that on the inside of these petals and bring that out. Just adding a bit more interest. Oops, there's a lot of paint there. And while it's still wet, I'm also going to scratch into this a little bit, which I'm going to show you. There, that's just added a bit of interest. Now I'm going to get, just using the end of the brush, or you can use a palette knife. I'm going to scratch through this now while it's still wet. And that's quite nice because you can see, I'm going to hold this up to the camera properly in a minute so you can see it better, but scratching through takes the paint off, and you can see the colour showing through from underneath, which is quite nice. I can bring that quite far up these petals because I am actually intending to do some further applique on here. So I'm just going to show you that now. Hold that up to the camera. Hopefully you can see I've scratched through while it was wet, and that's sort of revealing the little limey green yellows from underneath, which is quite nice. I quite like that contrast. And what I'm intending to do with this one is put some applique in the centre, but I'll sort of show you a bit more what I'm going to be doing with that one in a moment. So I'm going to get that dry, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to do some block printing on here. I'm also going to show you layering block printing on this section to make a block printed background. Okay, so I've dried off now. So I'm now getting ready to block print on this section of the leaf. Now, whenever you block print, always try it out on paper first before you go ahead on your fabric. I'm going to be using a deep turquoise, which I like the combination of turquoise and orange. It's lovely. So, carefully paint this on. The thing about block printing is if it actually doesn't come out completely, you can always touch it up a little bit with a brush afterwards if you need to. So I'm just checking I've got paint everywhere. I can. Okay, right. Now I always write a T on the top so you know which bit's the top. I'm going to try and get that roughly in the middle, near as I can. And oh, press hard. Oh, I'm shaking the camera. Oops. Right. Oh, there we are. Lovely. I quite like that. That's actually, I'm just going to show you, it's a bit grainy. So I could touch that up with a brush. I'm going to leave it to dry and think about it. I quite like the graininess, so I'm just going to think about it. And I can always paint over the top and add a little bit more colour if I want to afterwards. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing some block printing on this area here. But before I go any further, as I'm not using this one anymore, I'm just going to clean this one off. So I'm just going to remind you how to clean your block prints. Just get a damp tissue and just give it a light rub, and most of that paint should come off. If you do that and just look after them, they will last you years, these block prints. So you can't run it under the tap because it's on card, okay? And the tape, the sticky tape also wouldn't survive, I don't think, but there you go. Just get the worst of it off, dry it off with a tissue. That's all you need to do, and you can leave that to dry naturally and pop it back in a bag. I've got a bag full of these. Right, what I'm going to do now is get my colours ready, and I'm going to show you the block prints I'm going to be doing on this section. Okay, so this is the first block print I'm going to be using, and I'm going to be using a fairly lightish green for this. It's quite a zingy sort of spring green. Tried it out on paper first to check I like the colour and that it prints okay. And as I said when in the session when we're doing block printing, often the first print you do isn't as good as the rest, so it's always good to do one on paper and check it before you do anything else. Okay, so I'm going to do one over in this corner here. Oops. There you go. That's gone off over onto the tape, but that's fine. That might quite nice actually. So I'm just going to build this up, and I'm not going to put too many on because I'm going to build this up with 3 different layers. The first layer is pale green. Second layer is a different leaf which I'll show you, and that's going to be turquoise. And I'm going to come in and do a sort of magenta purple for the next one. I've got the one in this corner. just going to clean this one off before I do any more, just because I don't want the paint to dry on there. I'm not going to have to get it off again. So give it a good clean. There, that's that one done. Put that one to one side. And now the second block print, slightly different shape. And I'm going to do this one in a darker turquoise. I'm going to carry on and do this one and then come back to you. Okay, so I've now put the turquoise block prints over there. I did touch up a couple of them. They're a little bit grainy and patchy, so I've just touched them up with a little brush. I'm now going to put my third block print on, which is this design, and I'm going to put it on in a purpley colour. So I'm going to stop putting that on to show you and then carry on and come back to you again. I'm just going to try and overlap, so I've got things in different places. That's the plan. Oh. There you go. So I'm going to carry on, put a few block prints on, and I'll come back and show you. Okay, so I've now finished block printing this section. You can see it makes actually quite a nice background, I think, if you sort of layer them. And I've dried it all off, so now I'm ready to just pull off these little bits of masking tape in between the different sections. Oops. There we are. Better. So what I'm going to do to finish this off, I am not today, I've had enough for today to show you, I think, but I'm actually going to, on this section here, I'm going to be appliquing some flowers, a little bit like this sample here. So I'm going to use some applique flowers. And on this section here, I'm going to do some free machining around here. I'm going to do some free machining around the flower, and I'm going to applique a centre on here and do some stitching on there as well. On this section here, I'm going to applique a leaf, a sort of a leaf design. And I'm just going to show you a couple of other things to consider. Okay, so the painted background I just showed you was obviously quite simple, just very slightly graduated colours. If you wanted to do something a little bit more zany and wild or bright and colourful, you can actually do something like this, where I've actually built up and layered sort of some nice stripes, which can be quite nice as a background. Something like that with plain coloured applique flowers on it would look really nice. Another thing you could do actually is layering your block prints is you can make some small block prints and you can build them up and with layers again, and you can actually use these as pattern fabric, which you can then cut up and use in your applique. I just thought that might be quite a nice thing to try as well. Just a couple of other different ones here that I've layered just to play with. So what I thought I might do a few more of these little pieces of fabric and use up my paints with some layering of block printing. And I thought what I would do in the section of my my square that I haven't done anything to yet, I'm going to put a big leaf design in this section here, and I thought I would do something like that. So it's going to be made of applique. in different layers of fabric, but I thought I might make some pattern fabric that I could cut up and actually incorporate within that design. I thought that might be quite a nice thing. Also, in my flower here, I thought the centre, I might be able to sort of use some patterned fabric that I've actually printed myself, which I thought would be quite nice. Okay, I hope that's given you some ideas. Hope you can see that there's lots and lots of different ways you can combine these techniques. Obviously, I haven't put any stitching on there yet. That's going to be embellished with machine and hand stitching as well. You can put ribbons on there, you can put beads on there, really whatever you like. So I really look forward to seeing what you come up with and what sort of ideas you're going to have, and I shall hopefully see you soon.